guys, it's Leanne and it is time for another most anticipated from my shelves. In case you haven't seen this series on my channel before, I will link the playlist below so that you can go back and look through them. But essentially this is my year of the book ban, and so to counter my sadness at everybody else's highly anticipated releases for the year videos, I decided that I would shop my shelves and I would find my most anticipated books in all of the different genres that I have and show them to you guys. Today's genre is non-fiction, one that I am reading more and more of recently, as a lot of people seem to be on BookTube. So the first book that I've got here today is one that I am particularly excited for, and that is Adnan's story. This is by Rabia Chaudhry, who was a family friend of Adnan's. As you can see from the annoyingly non-removable sticker in the corner here, this is the story which inspired the podcast Seaworld. Essentially, 16 years ago, maybe 17 years ago now, Adnan Chaudhry was arrested for the murder of his high school sweetheart, Heyman Lee. Adnan was convicted of her murder and is now in prison and has, for his entire conviction, maintained his innocence. Rabia, in her continued search for justice, contacted an investigative journalist named Sarah Koenig, I believe is how you say her surname, and in her investigations into Adnan's story, she produced a podcast which is still available on iTunes and on the web, so you can go and listen to it. I would recommend Seaworld for anyone who loves true crime or who is a fan of Making a Murderer from Netflix. This book has been sitting on my shelf for about a year now and I haven't got to it, so I've decided I am going to re-listen to the entire Seaworld podcast, start to finish, which I have already started, and then I will read this book and I will make a video at the end of it discussing the pros and cons of both of them. The next one, which I am dying to pick up but I'm still a bit wary of, is Selfish, Shallow and Self-Absorbed. It is 16 writers' views on the decision not to have children. So to make myself perfectly clear on this subject, I have a few different conditions, which means that I could never conceive or carry my own child. I myself am also adopted, so this is not a huge issue for me in terms of potentially becoming a mother, because I would have been quite happy to foster or adopt myself, up until I made the decision that I don't think that I want children myself. And despite the fact that I am a functioning adult who owns her own home, who is married to a wonderful wife who also has no desire and has never had any desire to have children, and who owns 8 pets, well 10 if you count the gerbils, I suppose, but 8 pets at least that take time and energy, you would think that people would stop asking me when I am going to have children. This hasn't happened yet. So I picked up this book 2 years ago now maybe, and it's been sitting on my shelves waiting for me to be courageous enough in myself to pick it up and confront all of the reasons that I don't want children, and maybe look at a couple of the things that I'll miss, even though I've made this perfectly logical decision. So we'll see. Taking a break in the middle of these books for a little bit of humour, I have Bonked by Mary Roach. I have never read a book by Mary Roach. Please don't stone me. Please don't stone me to death for that. I know she's extremely popular when it comes to her non-fiction writing. I think this one comes with a little bit of a PG rating for any younger viewers there, although I don't think there's many of you, because I think most of you are just as screwed up as I am and will love this. Back to the seriousness now. This book is going to be an absolute heartbreaker, but I want to read it this year, and it is Death at Seaworld by David Kirby. So Death at Seaworld looks at orcas in captivity in Seaworld, and specifically it revolves greatly around the documentary Blackfish and the orca Tilikum, who sadly recently died. If you haven't seen the documentary Blackfish, I highly recommend it, but I will preface that by saying it is one of the saddest documentaries I have ever seen in my entire life. That said, I would watch it again in a heartbeat, over and over and over again, because it is just so well made. For those of you who don't know anything about the orcas at Seaworld or the deaths that have occurred there, or the documentary Blackfish. This book follows, through David Kirby, an investigative journalist's eyes, the cover-ups that have happened at Seaworld when orcas, who are supposedly so friendly and well trained, have turned on their trainers, sometimes for absolutely no reasonable reason, you know, other than that they are huge fish in tiny little tanks. And finally, the last non-fiction book that I am absolutely dying to read is this one. This is Patient HM. It is written by Luke Dittrich, and it is about a mental patient who was operated on in the 1950s to try and eliminate his constant debilitating seizures that were ruining his entire life. Unfortunately, while the procedure did manage to eliminate his seizures, it also unfortunately eliminated all of his memories, and patient HM was left with a memory of only 30 seconds. The neurosurgeon who performed this was William Beecher Scoville, and he later became one of the leading lights in memory research, and this book is actually written by his grandson. So this book doesn't just look at patient HM, it also looks at the history of neuroscience. We go all the way back to ancient Egypt, then we look at the horrible atrocities of lobotomies and experiments during the Hitler era. Anyhow, I think that this book goes all the way up to 2008 when patient HM died, and then has a couple of chapters which look at modern neuroscience. So I am extremely excited to get to this one, but it is an absolute chunker. Yes, 450 pages, so slightly intimidating, but I am dying to get to it. So to cover in this series, I still have classics and modern classics, which is going to be one video, literary fiction, biographies and memoirs, and also children's and middle grade fiction. So let me know in the comments also what you would like to see next, and I will get on that for you. Fitz, don't destroy my shelves. Mr. Fitzlepuff, please do not be destroying my shelves. Well, it's not my fault that you're destructive and not to be trusted. Yes, you. You may look cute, but you are not innocent. See you later, guys. Bye!